How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and it's been quite a while since I've done this, but I had enough people ask for it. So we're gonna do the new pros and cons to living in Denver, Colorado, the modern, what's happening today, and we're starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everetson, and there are two things we do here. One, we talk all things eating, living, breathing, experiencing the Denver Metro and the Colorado Front Range. And two, as a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the state's most talented realtors, I'm helping people like you move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, just know that I'm always the person, answer your texts, answer your emails, answering your phone calls, if and when you need me. Now that we're done with that phone-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is a new pros and cons, a modern, if you will, pros and cons of living in Denver, Colorado. So I have to admit, over the years, I've gotten so wrapped up in talking about certain areas and certain specifics. This is why you might consider here's schools, here's this, is that sometimes it's just about getting back to the basics. And I had a lot of people reach out to me and ask, hey, what are just the good and bad of living in this city? And what I don't want to do, just very quickly, is present you with the same stuff you already know. You already know that we get a lot of sunshine. You already know we get some winter. You already know that you come here for skiing and all of those things. So what we're going to try to talk about is the current state of Denver, where we are, where we're going, etc. So the first pro that I will give you is that, to me, Denver gives you a lot of those big city amenities. You've got all the sports, you've got concerts, you've got museums, you've got parks, you've got all of these things without the massive congestion of a New York, of a Chicago, of an LA, where we're bigger than a lot of your mid-market cities, but we have a lot going on. I mean, every sporting event you can imagine, concert halls out the wazoo, restaurants galore. We'll get into that a little more, but again, not with that same level of congestion that you'll get in massive cities. And tied to that is a second pro that I'm going to lean into, and that is the Denver facelift that is occurring over the coming years. Now, this is an ongoing project, and we have two of them that are pretty big. So you've got the Ball Arena Sports District and River Mile project developments, and this is going to change Denver forever. So the Cronkies, very wealthy family. They own the Colorado Avalanche, the Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Rams. They own a soccer team. I apologize, can't remember which one at the moment. International. And they are redeveloping Ball Arena and what is called the River Mile separately. So basically, we're talking about stitching together this whole new riverfront downtown area under one vision. You have 65 acres around Ball Arena Sporting District with roughly 12 million square feet and about 6,000 homes in this area. And then just southwest of that is the River Mile, which is another 62 acres of property with 27 of those acres dedicated to parks and open space. So what we're talking about is expanding Lodo to be this continuing walkable area of commercial spaces and residences and walking malls and restaurants and shops, all sorts of things. So basically, right now you have Ball Arena kind of out on an island a little bit. You have to walk. It's where the Nuggets and Avalanche play. You have to walk a bit to get into lower downtown and the rest of downtown. Not a huge walk, but it's there. They're going to create this extravagant area around it that, again, still includes a ton of open space, ton of reasons to get outdoors. Now, this isn't going to be immediate. This is going to take years. We're talking, 5 to 10 years before a lot of this is completed. But when it's done, downtown Denver is going to be one of the most incredible areas to visit, in my humble opinion, in the country. Now, kind of bouncing back and forth between our pros and cons a little bit, the first con I'm going to give you then is that downtown is going to be in this transition period for a while. And listen, downtown Denver has gone through a massive transition over the last 10 years or so. An extremely rough patch during the pandemic, no exception about that. Homeless out of control, just a situation, our crime increased. There are plenty of areas downtown that you didn't want to go to, and still some areas that need work. There's no doubt. 16th Street Mall going through its own revitalization, but Denver and downtown is still in a transition period. There's still a lot of work being done. So this glimmer in the future, it's coming, it's progressing. I think Denver is certainly, it hit a great point, got down to a very low point, and on its way back to some very positive days in the future. Flowing back into the good, push out bad. block bad, bring in good, is the fact that you have all of these cool neighborhoods with their own identities within Denver. Now, natives such as myself, sometimes we make fun of it a little bit. That Denver's gotten a little bougie in deciding to name all its neighborhoods. It's not the North Side anymore. You know, it's the Highlands, and it's not 5 Points anymore. It's Rhino. But you have all these cool neighborhoods within Denver, and all jokes aside, Highlands is one of the most popular neighborhoods in all of Denver. Yes, now split into the Highlands and Lower Highlands and now Slow High, all of these. You've got Wash Park, you've got Broadway, over to Platt Park. Yes, you have 5 Points or Rhino. So you have all these unique areas with different restaurants and bars and coffee shops and different neighborhoods where the homes are, unique to each area. So you aren't necessarily going to the same community as you go through. And you go to certain cities where it doesn't really matter what neighborhood you're in, it just kind of feels the same. Denver does not have that. It has a very unique space to it as you go through these different regions. Now, one of the negatives of these different regions then is, and we talk about the congestion of Denver not being like major cities, but our traffic, and this is really going to depend on where you come from, is that our traffic has gotten to the point where it is just a constant state of annoyance. And this really gets bad when you talk about our major arteries, our I-25, our I-70, I-225, which is a highway that wraps from one point of I-25 down south, kind of on the other side of downtown Denver, back to the south, south of Denver, back to 225. Those are the three major roads that get affected. Obviously, your service roads throughout the city can become congested as well. Really, the one that is pretty decent for traffic right now is 470. That is a looping highway that comes all the way around on I-70. It goes west out towards the mountains, wraps around E470 all the way east of towards Parker and Aurora, and back up north. So traffic, not our friend necessarily in Denver. If you're coming from, I'll say it all the time though, you're coming from a New York, a Chicago, an LA, some of these major cities, Seattle, you're gonna get to Denver and just kind of brush it off. At least that's been my experience. The fourth pro I would give you is that you can build a really good outdoor life here without being a nature freak. And a lot of times people think that moving to Colorado means that you gotta be a skier, you gotta be climbing 14ers every weekend, and that's just not the case. So you can really build a life around not even getting up into the mountains necessarily. There are so many city parks, there's so many foothill accesses, there's so many trail systems close to Denver. Weekend trips are relatively easy. I mean, we'll get into some of the traffic issues there, but overall, you don't have to think that coming out to Denver means that you have to become this extravagant outdoors person. For the first several years that I was back in Denver, from I'd say 2008 to about 2011, growing up here and coming back, I was not a huge outdoor enthusiast. I'm just making up words at this point. If somebody said they wanted to go hiking, I prayed for rain. It really grew on me. But there's so many other reasons to want to get outside in Denver. Don't stress if you're not a skier and you're not into hiking the highest of mountains. And this is a good time to mention then my third con, and that is, the mountains are so close and we've got great access to some amazing places. You can get to Vail pretty quick. You can get to Aspen in a couple hours, Breckenridge in an hour and a half. I mean, these amazing places, especially if you're going during the week. However, if you're going on the weekend, especially if you're driving up the mountain on Friday evening or you're driving back on Sunday, just be prepared to pay that timing tax. You're gonna lose some time getting up or down the mountain. I-70 can become quite a bit of a traffic jam or a parking lot. So that's kind of the benefit. Now, if you're in a position where you can get up to the mountains during the week, you can go during off-peak times, odds are you're not gonna have an issue. Maybe it gets a little busy up near the Eisenhower Tunnel, which is kind of the peak before you start coming back down the mountain. But overall, as long as you avoid Friday afternoons, evenings, and Sundays, you should be in good shape. Rolling right along, and I promise I'm counting for myself more than you, but our fifth pro is the fact that the housing market here in Denver has finally stabilized and is slowly getting to a healthier place. And I say this both for homes for sale and for rent. So both got out of control, as many of the hottest markets in the country did. Our appreciation on homes was insane. Rent was getting out of control. And rent is really the one that has improved the most. The affordability of rent has improved. So you're seeing this steady decline in rent prices, and you're also seeing a lot of options. You're starting to see places where they're advertising that they'll give you a month free, or that they'll take less of a deposit to get people in. So a lot more options there. And home prices, for the most part, with some exception, have stayed very steady. You're seeing some decline in prices or sellers giving concessions to help people buy them. But what you're not seeing is appreciation, or any type of substantial appreciation. And that's what we need. We need home prices to stay level, if not come down a tad, over a period of time. And we need rents to keep steady as they have been. So affordability in that range has really seen an improvement over the last 2 to 3 years. Now again, just to make sure everybody's on the same page though, when we're talking about home prices staying steady, one thing that has impacted our home buyers specifically is that other costs have increased. So you've seen homeowners insurance prices and their rates increase. You've seen repairs, taxes, these general costs of the home creep up. So that has definitely put a damper on some of these affordability challenges. Insurance, especially homeowners insurance and auto insurance in Colorado, has been a huge challenge. Again, hopefully past the worst of it, between hail, between wildfires, between underinsured drivers, you name it. But just understand, there's a little give and take there. So because Denver relies on finance and healthcare and tech and education, oil and gas, there are so many different industries that have a strong foothold in Colorado that people aren't forced to stay within one industry, or if they lose a position in that industry, they have other options. So I have a lot of people who have moved here where they moved here for the tech space. They have a job in tech and they know that if something goes wrong, they've got a lot of different options. Same thing in these other industries, or if they need to pivot to another industry, it's optional there. So one of the things that these people, or the people that I've talked to, really enjoy is that optionality. That if something goes wrong, or if they simply don't like what they're doing anymore, it doesn't mean that they have to pick up and move cities. They could literally change industries, change jobs. There's a lot of options for them to consider. The next pro I want to talk about, and I think this one is very important because it's been kind of drilled into my head from people who have moved here, is that Denver is a social hobby city. So if you do activities, if you're into sports, if you're into climbing, cycling, art, volunteering, you'll find people faster than if you wait for friendships to kind of just appear out of nowhere, or if you wait for them to appear out of your work or what have you. So many people that I talk to who have moved to Colorado, some from this channel, some just because of the industry that I'm in and we've connected, they talk about their experiences in connecting with other people, making friends, building those relationships. And time again, the people who are building friend groups have found the activity that they gravitate to. Some of my best friends now, all mountain bikers. And that's really how they all connected. I got pulled into that circle after the fact. It already started, and I appreciate that. And then at the same time, my folks that move here that don't really have an activity, again, it doesn't have to be athletic in any way, shape, or form. Heck, it could be a book club, but the people that don't have an activity, and especially the ones that don't have an office where they're connecting with people, those are the ones that tend to be on the outside looking in when it comes to building relationships and building a friend group, if they don't already have one, obviously, when they move here. So as diverse, again, as the economy is in Denver, and as many different industries as exist in the city, it is also important to understand that, especially at these higher echelon paying positions, the competition in Denver is also fierce. You have a lot of people who are moving to Denver. They want these spaces, again, whether it's medical, finance, tech, you name it. The higher paying positions tend to have a lot of people who want them. So while there are an abundance of opportunity to get into these spaces, as you start to work your way up that ladder, just expect that to become more fierce as far as the competition there and the scarcity, if you will, of some of those higher paying positions. And that to me is one of the biggest cons of Denver and one of the cons that is most vocalized. So you have this dynamic of Denver where it can be really socially cold until you earn your way in, and for a number of factors. So one, you have some aspect of natives. If you actually run into a Colorado native, they'll have a bumper sticker and they'll tell you like within 3 seconds of being here that they're a Colorado native. But a lot of them, sometimes they have, you have your friend group already in place. You're not really trying to make new friends. So you're not spending a lot of time with someone new. You're not encouraging building a relationship. There are some of that. The other aspect is that a lot of Denver is very transitory. So people are so in and out that they're not really building, again, those relationships. And in my experience, while Denver has some Midwest-ish to it, and Colorado natives, I believe, have some of it, it's not quite as much. For instance, in my time living in the Midwest in Ohio, if you met one person and you were introduced to their high school friends treated you like you went to high school with them. You were instantly in their group. In fact, I always joke I have more high school friends that I didn't go to high school with in Ohio than I do here in Colorado. Colorado just isn't quite that way. So it can be socially cold. We often call it the Denver freeze. And so if you're not joining things, if you're not finding ways to get into groups, there's the chance that you're going to deal with some loneliness. And that's just something that I want to make sure people are aware of, because it's feedback I've gotten from people who have had a more challenging time with their move here. Next up, with just a couple pros to go, is the food scene improving in Denver. Now listen, people will always compare Denver to, we've already said it, New York's or LA's. To me, the Denver food scene has, people say, oh, it's mid, Denver restaurants are expensive, and I won't say they are not. Denver restaurants can feel a little bougie, their price points can be a little out of control at times, but the food scene here has steadily been improving. Like, we have some Michelin rated restaurants at this point, we've got some great places. Our hole-in-the-wall restaurants, especially when it comes to Mexican, you call it Tex-Mex if you want, whatever, is fantastic. So the food scene in Denver really improving. And again, I think you're starting to see this where some of these restaurants are stepping up to new levels. We have a lot more options. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, with some of these developments that are happening in Denver, we have another huge development happening in Cherry Creek. You're going to see more of this competition between restaurants. I think it's going to raise the bar even higher. All right, one more pro and one more con to go. The last pro I've got for you is that Denver International Airport is a powerhouse. And it's hilarious to me how many people are just kind of surprised at how many flights, how many international places you can get to, how many direct flights we have from Denver International. The fact that this airport consistently ranks within the top 5 to 7, oftentimes in the top 5 busiest airports in the entire world, because of the fact that it's in the center of the United States. And because of how many, it's just a massive airport. So Denver, it's a legit national and international connector. And just understand the one negative of that is that it's constantly under construction. But I mean, that's pretty minor for the amount of access you get being at that airport. And the last con I would mention, and it's just one that, and I've mentioned in other videos as well, and that is our air quality. And listen, I would like to brush that off, but the fact is the Denver Metro and North Front Range has been classified as a severe ozone non-attainment area. It means that our ozone seasons still tend to rack up. They still tend to be higher than your national average. So there are plenty of days where you're looking down at downtown Denver and you've got that haze. There's plenty of days where, you're looking at our beautiful Rocky Mountains and you just kind of see what looks like smoke past it. And sometimes it is smoke. Sometimes it's wildfires, whether they're here or in another state and the air is getting blown in here. But overall, air quality in Denver is not in great shape. But I'll continue to say it. Are there some bad things about living in Denver? Absolutely. There's bad things about living everywhere. But as far as a fun city where you have all the things, you want to go to a museum, you want to go to concerts, you want to go to restaurants, you want to go to sporting events. Maybe you don't like any of that stuff. You just want to be outdoors. Some of the best outdoor music venues, I should mention. Getting up into the mountains, knowing that you're just a couple hours from some of the most monumental, massive, beautiful ski resorts and mountain towns, the type of areas that people fly from all over the world to come see. And all you got to do is jump in your Toyota 4Runner, which is a great vehicle to have in Denver, by the way, and head up to the mountains a couple hours. Phenomenal. And if there are any pros or cons that you can think of that I haven't spoken about in this video, I would love to hear them. I'm always up for your feedback. That's how I learn. That's how I get better. And my number and email here, feel free to share those or ask any questions you have. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jim Everett. That was the new modern pros and cons of living in Denver, Colorado in 2026. Until I see you next time, peace.